because of all this water energy. I'd have to tell you guys, you know, I always like to give examples of astrology in action. Yesterday, Mercury was at the last, it's hi Faye. The Mercury was at the last degree of Pisces, and Venus is also there, but Mercury is really your thinking and your communication and all that kind of stuff. Well, what a weird day I had yesterday. I could not find, I had taxes to do. Luckily, I wasn't doing them. I was taking them to our tax guy, so I didn't have to have my brain on straight with that one too much. But I could not find my car keys, and I looked and looked, and I was starting to run late, and I had to go. And we bought that Jag. I think I told you, that convertible Jag. So even though my husband's like, oh, there's kind of salt on the roads, I was like, I just had to go in the Jag in the end. So I got to drive the Jag, not with the hood down because it was too cold. But anyway. There was that, and there was something else. Like, my brain's still foggy a bit, but my brain was so foggy, and it turns out my cat had knocked my car keys just onto one of the dining room chairs off the dining room table where I kind of dumped my stuff. So they were there all the time, sitting on this chair, and I had hunted absolutely everywhere, and I was like, I couldn't even remember when I last went out in the car, what I was doing, where I'd been. It was just one of those days. And there was something else I did as well. Oh, the other one was I got the crock pot out. And you'll laugh at this. And I'd had the crock pot in a bowl in the dishwasher. So I put that on the side, and there was the bit you put the bowl in there, because I use my crock pot a lot. And I went and put the food in the outer bowl. So and kind of all the liquid that I was starting to put in was just leaking right through onto the kitchen side. Luckily, I realized right away, so I got it out. It didn't damage any of the electrics. Anyway, that's what Mercury in Pisces was doing. I mean, you have to bear in mind that this talking about aspects as well, and transits, transits we'll be looking at in level 2 for those of you that choose to do it with me. The transiting Mercury at the end of Pisces was actually squaring my ascendant, my Sagittarius ascendant. So kind of it was probably maybe affecting me more than other people. Not everyone, of course, it's going to affect there's other people with that, but that's a kind of a good example of a transit really kind of making fog brain. Luckily, my tax guy's really good, so the taxes are in, they're done. And I do kind of feel now things are starting to move out of Pisces that I will actually get these final worksheets done, get all the recordings in that one document to make sure you've all had a chance to download them. The group will not close till you've done everything, till you've got everything, okay? So while the group's open, you are still, I'm still happy to look at homework. Yes, I know there's one to look at, Faye. I think it was you that put one in. So if anybody wants to do some charts stuff for me to just kind of give a bit of feedback on, I'm not like, you've done this wrong. I will make gentle suggestions if I feel it could be looked at a different way is all. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, but yes, the group will stay open till you've got all the worksheets and all the recordings, until I'm sure everybody's had a chance to get them all. But I am deactivating my Facebook from late on the 8th when Jupiter goes retrograde for a week. And this time I'm deactivating properly. I'm kind of not going, I've got this little alternate account. But this time I'll be getting rid of it all. I just need a retreat week. I need time to prepare for my retreat that Barbara's coming to in Arizona. I also, you know, I'm really trying to step back from Facebook a bit, and I feel like a real week's break. Oh, okay. Yeah. If you can come and go, that's fine. Yeah, I just need a week to do some stuff and to really kind of, I've started writing my book, so I want some writing time, and the weather's warming up, so I actually want to get, so I'm taking a week to develop different habits, shall we say, so that when I come back on Facebook, I'll be refreshed and all that. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, get it in before I leave on the 8th. But if I don't get a chance to give much feedback, I will be back, and I will give any feedback that people have posted after I come back after that week. And then once I'm sure you've got all your recordings and I've finished uploading those, the Ceres worksheet and the nodes worksheets, and that you've got those, the group will close then. But you know, I don't have a definite date because I just want to make sure you've got everything. And I also will, before the 8th, I will be posting a link for my level 2. So I've just got to sit down today and really to kind of figure out how long I need to teach transits and progressions adequately. Okay, to my standard. Because to my mind, transits and progressions are where the real fun comes in, but you need to know the natal chart first. So get some practice if you want to take it to the next level. Okay. I think that was all the kind of news I wanted to say. This Pisces season, I found it so chaotic. And with my Saturn return happening at the same time, putting a big fat break on, saying things have got to change, and it was bringing up the memories of my first Saturn return, and which was all positive, but it was a definite kind of break, saying I have to change, or things have to change, you know, how I work and stuff like that. So anyway, so when I say a Facebook break this time, I'll probably leave. I've got that second little Facebook profile I set up for family mainly, and I'll probably take that off my phone and leave that one active so that the group's still open, because I don't know what would happen to the group if I deactivated both my accounts. So I'm not going to do that, because I do want you guys to still have access to the group. Righto, so we're going to look at some, I'm going to just share my screen. I'm going to go to my software, and oh, hang on, I hit the wrong button. We're going to look at some aspect patterns today. And I'm just going to go kind of look at what we've got. I'm going to start with the T-square. And there is the T-square. Okay, so we have a T-square today, so that's kind of handy. Where's my notes? I just need to find my notes. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the T-square, first of all, if you can you see my software? Yeah, my Astro Gold. Yes, cool. So we have a classic T-square happening today. It's kind of fading right now as the moon's moved on a little bit, but here we have the moon. Oh no, this is for March the 31st actually, because I left that up. So this is actually the new moon chart coming up, or full moon chart for March the 31st. It doesn't really matter though, because we're just looking at the aspect patterns. I forgot that I'd looked at that yesterday, so we're still at that, but it doesn't matter. So I want you to just see the patterns, not to worry about where they are. And then we're actually going to look at some kind of celebrity charts, if you like, to pick out some aspect patterns and some aspects. And just for you guys to kind of start looking at the charts and see what you think to what's in there. Okay. So a T-square, first of all. So a T-square is 2 points of a horoscope in opposition, and the correct term is in quadrature to a third planet. In other words, those two opposing planets are both squaring the third planet. And in this case, it's the moon opposite the sun, and they're squaring Saturn and Mars both, and also Lilith. So in a way, there's 3 T-squares in this upcoming full moon chart. Okay, so I'm going to quote some other astrologers and write it, and I took some notes about what they kind of said. So F. Sakoyan, his name, and L. Acker, they described the T-square as almost the character of Saturn, kind of bringing obstacles and the necessity of overcoming them. But it also brings, and I'm not actually quoting, I'm kind of paraphrasing. It also brings real tension. T-squares get a bad name. People go, but they really bring really powerful drive to act and change, which is also kind of very Saturnian. Saturn really wants to do and get things done. So there's pressure and conflict in a T-square, but they really move to help you to create and get things done in your life and take action. I think I've mentioned before that, like the trine and the sextile, they really need some more impetus, or they need you to really choose into to really make them work in your life. But if you have a T-square, you've got that impetus. They're usually much more driven people and really will create stuff, get stuff done, succeed, whatever they, many successful people have T-squares in their charts. Okay, but of course it depends what qualities, what planets and things are involved. You always have to take that into account, of course. The T-square also kind of indicates a little bit of, more crisis-oriented energy, whereas, say, a grand trine, which we'll come to as well, is very more laid back, but they often don't get stuff done. So there's no good or bad configurations, as there are no good or bad transits or aspects. Okay, so March and McKeevers, they're 2 other astrologers, state that in a T-square, the opposition is connected with attitudes and the square with actions. It's a dynamic configuration through which the native derives driving strength, which is what I've already said. If the T-square is in cardinal signs, and does anybody remember? Let me check, see if you do. Does anybody remember what the cardinal signs are? I'm going to give you a chance to write. Initiators. That's correct. Do you remember what those signs are? Aries. Yep, you've got them. Yay. I'll just put you on the spot there, but it's the only way you'll remember if you keep remembering them. It took me ages to really get all of those things, like the mutables and the cardinals and the fixed, and then the elements as well. And then all the other bits, it took me a long time to get those. And then there's the houses, the cadent houses and things like that. And I've not really gone into that because, as you will find, astrology is a rabbit hole. It's a bottomless pit of learning, which is why I like it. But anyway, so if the T-square is in cardinal signs, that's the initiating signs. It usually means a personality that's dynamic, quick, and starts quickly. Bit of a risk taker, quite more likely to interfere in other people's affairs. For T-squares in fixed signs, so that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Okay. Sorry, I just clicked on something I shouldn't do there. Then it indicates a person that it operates more slowly but is more resolute. Okay. And really somebody who kind of finds out a lot of information before acting. Mutable T-square that's the other sign, is a person really who can be indecisive and wavering that's their obstacles, and they can be a bit oppositional too with that T-square, a mutable T-square. That's kind of opposing other everything, fighting against. Okay. I think that's all I'm going to say. Oh, apart from the fact, I did want to say as well that often people with a powerful T-square in their charts find the outlet to be what's called the empty leg. Yeah, I'm sure I get it recording. Let me have a look. Stop share. Yeah, it's recording. Yeah. Yep, the empty leg is called. Okay, it's the opposite point to the planet that is being squared by the two opposition planets. So the empty leg in this case would be around 10 degrees of Cancer. Okay, so that if this was a person in their natal chart, that empty leg, that 10-degree mark, would be where they would often go to find kind of relief or an outlet. And I've spoken to a lot of people, but the one thing I read about it is it says subconscious promptings are focused in that empty leg area. As the natives' discontent with destiny grows. I prefer to help them consciously kind of choose. So this kind of person, if this was a person, you might say they, there was a lot of stuff going on in their relationships and kind of a lot of challenge. Yeah, tension, that's the word I was looking for. Tension in their relationships, and especially their relationships to authority and who they were in relationship to others as regards authority. But their real kind of strength, place, outlet of making the most of the T-square would be over in Cancer. So kind of, through nurturing, through love, that kind of energy. That's just an example on the chart. Okay, so the next one I want to look at is a grand trine, and I'm just going to move this chart forward till we've got a grand trine, and I hope it's not too long. I meant to get the charts. Oh, there you go. See, the moon, luckily, makes a grand trine really quickly. So we can look at a lot of these patterns just to look at the everything through the moon's transits. Okay. So this is not a very close ground trine, but you can see the pattern of it. It's a triangle, basically, with blue lines, whereas the T-square is red lines. In almost all software, but I guess you might get a black and white one now and again where they're only black. Well, I'm not going to go into what if the release is in the 12th house right now, because that depends on the planets involved and all those things. So yeah, and the signs and all that kind of thing. So it would depend on integrating all those things. It's not as simple as just saying, what if the empty leg is in the 12th house or the release is in the 12th house? So this is where you'll have to practice, because it always involves the planets involved, the signs involved, so in the 12th house, the empty leg might be in Aries, and it would be very different if your 12th house was Pisces. So, okay, so grand trine, triangle. So whenever you see those 3 blue lines, it's a grand trine, and it's planet pairs connect together, 3 points of horoscope. Okay, 3 trines. And it's a very harmonious, very stable configuration. Really, people with a grand trine as kind of their main configuration. Okay, bear in mind people might have more than one configuration, but if people have a grand trine as the main configuration, they usually have kind of a bit of an easier life, more flowy. External conditions seem to really help them to move ahead. Things seem to come to them more easily. That's generally true only about the earlier part of life, up until really about the first Saturn return. After that's when they probably have an easier time at school, that kind of energy. Okay, but the negative side, it's so stable that the person rarely moves beyond what comes easily. Okay, it can turn into an unwillingness to develop and change. It's somebody who's happy with the status quo. I'd love to know, but my sister-in-law, she's lovely. I love my brother's wife. She's great, but she's so content. And to somebody like me, and my husband, who have more challenging and dynamic aspects in our charts, we're always seeking kind of something, like we've moved countries, and I'm not saying better, we're not seeking better, we're just like change and like to challenge ourselves, where she's just happy. She has lived in the same town all her life. She met my brother, they got married, didn't get married for 10 years. She just is so content and patient. She kind of let him lead the way, and then I think they had kids when he wanted kids. She kind of just lets it come to her. I'm sure she has a grand trine in her chart. She's not really into this, so she would not. It could be a fixed grand trine too, because she's a bit stubborn. She will not let me. She probably would not let me look at her birth chart. So, but in some ways I envy her contentedness. But then she has this unwillingness to kind of personal development, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to be judgy about it because she's happy. So, but life's come pretty easily to her as well. She, was left a house by her parents. All it's just, I just see it as kind of this graceful, easy life, which not all of us are, but they're not what some people would view as highly successful either. She's kind of not, they still live in a little house and just content. Anyway, so there's so much judgy language in this because, you know, does everybody want to be this massive success in life and things? But in charts of what they call, yeah, exactly. She may have had some very difficult past lives and she gets this easy life where she's just content to kind of flow through it. Okay. But in charts of highly successful people, the Grand Trine is whatever successful means. The Grand Trine is very rarely the main configuration. Okay. So if you see it as in fact, I don't know if I've seen many people come for readings that have something less that only have a Grand Trine and have don't have more dynamic aspects in their chart. It is, you know, I don't see anything wrong with it. You know, sometimes I envy them, but you know, but they also don't come for astrology readings very often. Because they're not looking for anything. They're not looking for answers and they're not looking for growth and change. So so you probably won't experience many people who really only have a Grand Trine in their chart was doing readings, because why would they come for astrology readings? So but those that do, you know, really they could come because, especially later in life, because they feel a little bit, trying to think back, because then they start to feel like they're a little bit stuck, or they look at everybody else and think, oh, maybe I should be doing this. So I think if you've got somebody with a Grand Trine, it's kind of easy to direct somebody with something like a T-square, because they're really looking for growth, change, and to get things done and to do all this. But if they've got a Grand Trine, I would probably gently guide them to creative kind of self-expression and spiritual self-improvement. And you've got to pay attention to what signs it's in, and you know, which elements it's in. Usually they're in earth, water, or fire. Occasionally you'll get ones that are a bit out of sign, but usually they're going to all be in earth, all be in water, or all be in fire or air. Of course, that's the other one. So, you know, somebody with an air Grand Trine is more pulled towards air activities, of course, writing, communication, journaling, that kind of thing. Somebody with an earth Grand Trine would be more drawn to creative self-expression through touchy, earthy things like cooking, gardening, things like that. Somebody with fire is got a bit more kind of go in them, and they're more likely to kind of need physical action, like running, sports, that kind of thing. And what was the other one? Water. That's emotion and spirit, of course. They'd find their fulfillment through spiritual activities. Okay. So another of my kind of favorites is the yod. Okay. And have we got a yod? I don't have a yod going on at the moment. So oh, there was one nearly. Okay, I just want to show you the pattern. Let's get the moon. Quincunx. Ah, there we go. Got it. So A yod is two planets making a sextile, which is a 60-degree aspect. Okay, so here it's the moon to the north node. And then it's two quincunxes or inconjuncts, which are these dotted green lines. In a yod, I would normally go about 2 degrees. Again, it depends on the planets. So it's a yod with the moon. Really, it's only exact when it's kind of like about a degree, really, because the moon's so fast moving. And some astrologers don't even really call it a yod when it's a moon. I do, because, you know, it triggers something. It's quickly, but it's something that comes up. But if it's a slower moving outer planets, I would go a little bit wider. You know, if there was a magnificent yod being made, they must be very rare. I can't. But say if there was a yod with Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune, for example, the 3 slowest moving powerhouses, I would actually say that I would probably even go to like 4 degrees. Yeah. But you see the pattern. It's called a yod, a finger of fate, or a finger of God. Now, you know, I'm giving you a very quick overview. There's a book called the Yod Book. There's all about yods. So, you know, these are really kind of detailed things. I haven't even read the whole Yod book because I've got so many astrology books. But I just want to give you kind of an idea. So really, the Yod is really kind of a crisis of and a need for perspective. It's kind of a real, but it's a real fated aspect, which is why it's called a finger of fate or finger of God. It's where the energies of the 2 planets that are in sextile are finding it difficult to integrate with that of the apex, the point, which is where the focus of the yod is. It's not necessarily really a conflict, but it's just really kind of a bit difficult to resolve. And I've seen it described as an appointment with power. Okay. And it's almost like a secret to be decoded and a visitation from the unknown, because if you look at this particular yod, ignoring the fact that really it's only a moon, there's air, fire, and earth. So it's 3 elements which are hard to mix. You know, 2 elements are easier to mix. Obviously the same elements are very easy to blend. But when it's like 3 different elements and 3 different planets, and these inconjuncts can be uncomfortable aspects, they're not really challenging as much as uncomfortable. The integration is really kind of difficult. And I kind of like that they're called the finger of fate or God, because really it's about asking for clarity and insight regarding that. And you will need to do that probably for your planets. This is where I find things like journey work and meditation on charts come in very useful for the astrologer rather than the technical things. Because if you look at the dynamics of a yod, there can be so many different elements, you know, elements as in real elements and in different planets, different aspects, different energies, that there's a lot to integrate there. Okay. Now, you will also rarely see a yod where there's also an opposition thrown in. So there would, say, be a planet at the midpoint here, midpoint between the 2 sextiles planets, and that would be opposing the apex of the yod. And when that comes in, the apex planet becomes even more critical. But either way, really, the apex is always what's being pointed at. And in my view, it's the energy of the two sextile planets need to be drawn in and integrated into what the finger is pointing at. That's how I always look at the yod. Different astrologers will probably explain it differently or have a slightly different feeling about it, but that's been my finding with it, really. I kind of have a wide yod, but it's there, and it's pointing at my moon Lilith conjunction in Gemini, which is also the handle of a basket pattern. And so it's obviously a very crucial point in my chart because it's got a few things going on there, and it's a singleton, and if I count them together. So you'll often find if there's something that important in a chart, there'll be a few things pointing at it. Okay. Now then, I don't know if I'm going to be able to create a grand cross. So I'm just going to let you imagine first a grand square is 4 squares. Okay. So you'll see that'll be red. It'll look like as well like 2 T-squares or 4 T-squares, in fact, because it's like the 4 squares. The grand square is the most intense of configurations because it really kind of traps the person in a framework of challenge. Okay, and they're not that rare. You know, I've seen quite a lot of grand squares in my readings, but they give and probably because those people are really drawn to things like astrology readings. So there's really a lot of energy and internal dynamism and force and action oriented dynamism, but there can be a lot of inflexibility in relating to the world. Okay. And really, the grand cross and the grand square cannot be truly separated because you can have a grand square without an internal cross if there's a wider orb. So if you see on the chart pattern that you have a square, but it's a little bit crooked and there isn't 2 oppositions in, then that's slightly less challenging grand square. Okay. It's not, now the grand square is not destructive, but it can be a little bit too stable at times, bringing inflexibility, as I said, because people get stuck in their thing, and especially if it's like a fixed grand square, because they can be very rigid. Mutables kind of less so, and cardinal somewhere in between. But again, nothing's bad. The grand square is dynamic, very dynamic. The grand cross is probably one of the most challenging ones. Okay, because they've got all these oppositions really going. So if they've got 2 oppositions that are in a grand cross forming this more exact grand square, then it's like the grand square intensified. Okay. Now, again, extremely dynamic, really probably can be very successful people because they've got lots of action going on, lots of resoluteness, and mutable can depend a bit more on the other for it because they often look outside them. But really, this is all about integration of these opposites in a grand cross. I always think about trying to come to the center, bring in those 4 energies, and blend all the words that you might say for all the 4 individual ones separately, and work out how to guide people to to integrate them. That's integration, always the key. Okay. The kite, that's an interesting one. So we have the grand trine, okay, but then the grand trine has one planet in opposition to one of the points, makes it look like a kite. You'll see it like a kite. The kite is like a grand cross with more stability and realization of abilities. Okay, it's got more of a driving force, yet still has that stability of that grand trine. Okay, the point that's at the opposition of the spine is often the place that people really find most kind of success. All right. I'm trying to think what other ones I want to show you. I don't really want to show. There are lots of others. You can get whole books on these. Cafe Astrology is also really good, but I wouldn't go and try and learn them all right away. Okay, I would learn those main ones because they're the ones you're going to see. You may have occasionally see a Star of David, and that's like 2 grand trines that form a hexagon. If you see one, get used to really looking for the patterns in the chart. And if you go, oh, that looks like a hexagon, go, oh, it is, I see 2 grand trines, then go and look it up. Okay, if you try and remember all this right now, you're going to drive yourself absolutely nuts because there's so many resources. I don't think I was not taught grand trines. No, I was taught grand trines, but Stars of David, and then there's also envelopes and pentagrams and trapezes, and mystic rectangle is one I've seen a lot lately, actually, but that's kind of weird. That's a rectangle, 2 oppositions with 2 trines and 2 sextiles, and the mystic rectangle seems to be coming up a lot, especially by transit right now. But I think that's to do with us shifting into this new age. So I'm going to leave you. Well, I'm not going to leave you. We've got other things I wanted to look at. But just get to know those basic ones first. Okay. And if a Star of David jumps out at you and you're doing a chart reading, if it can't be anything else, you look at it and go, wow, that's really important in the chart, then go and learn about it. Okay. There was other thing I wanted to look at, and then I just want to look at some charts for a bit, because I think you learned more last week really than anyway, sorry. No, I can't find what I was looking for. So I'm going back to this and just chart patterns. Okay. So if we ignore, in fact, let me take them out. Let me take the nodes and series out right now. I can do that. Okay. Now, if Jupiter was up here, that would be a basket pattern, and it still is a basket pattern in a way, because all the planets are on one side of the chart and one is a singleton on the other. And I have a basket pattern in my own, and that's what's called a basket. Then we have a splayed chart. And I bet if we move on a little bit here, this would be called a splayed chart. I've been seeing a few splayed charts lately. And they're very balanced people usually. They have balanced hemispheres, balanced left, right, and balanced north and south, or east, west, north and south, I should say. They're usually very well balanced. Because it's splayed out, they're usually very balanced in elements as well. So just look at chart patterns and see what you feel to them. It doesn't really matter what the exact name is, I don't think. I don't think I've ever said to somebody, oh, you have a splay in your chart. I just go, look at how your planets are spread out around the chart. This indicates to me that you're a very balanced person. That's the kind of thing I would say. Now, if this was a natal chart, you would see that there is a kite here. Okay. So they have a kite. They also have a T-square. So just get used to looking for those patterns. Okay. Right, now I did want to look at some charts today. So let me just get no, I don't know if I could look at Donald Trump's. Oh, I just don't know if I can go there today. Okay. This is interesting. Okay, let's look at this one first of all. I'm going to get a picture up, don't worry. And I have to change the chart because I want you to look at, oh, where's his chart gone? Oh. I want you to get used to just looking at lots of charts. So I don't know why that one's not opened. Oh, that's why. Because it was on the chart screen. No, not the one I wanted. It is now. It's open now. I'll share it now. It wasn't the one I wanted, actually. I could not. Well, it was, but I want to see it as preview kind of thing. I want to see it separate. So it's a bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so what's the main aspect in his chart? Or the main configuration, I should say. Or what do you notice about patterns as well and things like that? Grand trine for sure. Yeah. Kind of a basket, I'd say, because I took out the nodes and things. I would say probably he's a bit more of a splay. He's got, and let me add those in for the next chart. Yeah, he seems to be quite well spread out. And if you just think about Prince Charles's life, really, he's had a very, even when I know his ex-wife died in an accident and the marriage failed, but he was kind of really, moon's opposing Mercury. But what does it mean, Barbara? But if you think about him, he's had quite an easy life, really. And from what I, know of him, he's had a bad rap, but the guy's he's very easygoing. He talks to plants. Okay. So interestingly, his grand trine is in earth and fire because it's slightly out of sign. So he's got that earthy, he's very much an eco kind of warrior, but in a very quiet way. He doesn't shout about, oh yeah, he talks to plants. Yeah, he's got this place in Cornwall that's organic. He's been into organic gardening for all his life, and um, you know, there's a lot that's not very public about him as well, which would indicate the Grand Trine, because he wants really, even though he is a public figure and he has to go out, I would not be surprised if when the Queen dies, he passes it on to William. Although I don't know if he wants it either. But because he is, he's doing it out of duty, which is, but he really wants this quiet life. And, you know, he should have been allowed to marry Camilla first before Diana, but hey, we wouldn't have William and all those people now. So it is what it is. It's his life. But he's that Grand Trine. He's almost a kite there as well to his Mercury, and he's quite a deep. Yes, he's very private. Yeah, Barbara, very private. Anybody else? Any thoughts on his chart? For a public person, he's extremely private. Yeah. But I would say that Grand Trine, looking at the Grand Trine, does indicate, you know, things have obviously come easily to him because he was born into the royal family and kind of he's never had to really earn anything. He did his military duty, but left it as soon as he could, I think. He actually went to a really hippie school as well called Gordonstoun. I don't know if you know that. I think that was the name of it, Gordonstoun. Yeah, I'd say that Neptune Venus in Libra is very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think he is in some ways. Yeah. And I think that's kind of why, if you think, I don't know how much you follow the royal families, but well, it's in the fourth house, so he likes to be at home, and his partner, wife now, Camilla, is kind of more the masculine kind of energy in the family. He's actually, from what his sons say as well, he's actually a very nurturing, loving, spiritual father, almost like more motherly. And he had to become kind of the mother to those boys anyway, when their mum died. You know, he's a lot nicer person than his, you know, than the public give him credit for, I believe. Even though he wasn't very kind to Diana, but then he was forced into marrying her too. So really, so you know, I'm kind of forgiving about that. A lot of people are not. You know. Yeah. If any, I'm going to look for another chart. Well, to see if anybody else wants to, if there's anything anybody else wants to say about him and his chart. Because this is kind of where it comes alive. Sun conjunct Chiron. What's your take? I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm doing it all for you all the time. Just guess. Have a guess. Meld some words. Anybody, not just Barbara. Sun conjunct Chiron in the cusp of the fifth house in Scorpio. Yeah. His children and his family are really important to him. And apparently he's very deeply bonded to those boys. Yeah. But also his wound. Yeah. You know, he is a bit of a wounded child himself. Yeah. Barbara, yeah, all this right. You know, I would not envy anybody being born into the royal family when he was born into it. I think William, he's given him and Diana, you know, before she died, but him afterwards, have given his boys a pretty amazing upbringing, really, and kind of shifted the perception of the royal family. But there's that deep, deep bond in there, and also wounding. But he's also deeply creative, apparently. I believe he likes to paint too. So that's fifth house as well. And he probably finds the painting really healing too. Only I believe he's quite the artist, but you see, he's so private that most of that will not be shown at all. So I'm going to do another of the royal family just while we're on it. Go to another generation, and I'm just going to print it. And go to his grandson. So let me change the share. Oh, here it is, the next one. There we go. Another grand trine. There's actually, if you ever get into family astrology and looking at family patterns in family charts, there's a lot of family connections, okay, in these charts. Now, if you can see George, Prince George, that's William's son, he has oh, I see. Oh, bring window to front. Oh, I've got to share and share again. Oh gosh. Okay, there we go. He has Saturn in Scorpio at 4 degrees. And what did Charles have? I'm just looking myself. He has Mercury in Scorpio in the house, in the 4th house at 6 degrees. So, you know, they have a Mercury-Saturn conjunction. I believe Charles is very close to his grandchildren and absolutely adores them. But it's all very hidden from the public, what they do, because it's all in Scorpio. So, you know, he's they've got these connections. But anyway, so what's the first thoughts on little Prince George? Yeah, I do. I think it shows the legacy. I think it also shows that he'll be reluctant. I know. It's in the 8th house, so it's in a very private place, but it's other people's money. And of course, he's probably never going to have to earn his own money, Prince George, unless the royalty's done away, the royal family, or royalty is done away with. I don't think we do it's like the Russian Revolution and kill them all. But he's very shy, all that cancer. Have you ever seen pictures of him? He's such a shy little kid. He, you know, his sister, she like smiles for the cameras and things. He hides behind his dad's leg, stuff like that. Very shy, very private little kid. And again, he's got grand trine, but his is purely in water. Yeah, yeah, Bridget. Yeah, completely in water. The charts of the royal family, it's interesting. If anybody ever wants to just go and look through and find them, you can just find them on the internet and look at them. They've kind of got a lot of Cancer and a lot of Scorpio and a lot of spiritual stuff in them. But I think they're getting more that way as well. You know, that grand trine in water is very powerful. It's and again, it's almost a kite, because there is this Pluto that you could, it's 5 degrees for a sextile, that's pretty wide, but they're kind of powerful planets, so almost a kite. So he's got this water grand trine with earthy Pluto. He's Pluto in Capricorn, which is going to be a powerful generation, by the way, for creating new institutions and things as we go forward. At the moment, we've got the Pluto in Sagittarius generation doing the anti-gun martyrs now after the high school in Florida was shot up. But the next generation after them, when George comes of age, so he's 5 now. So we're looking in about another 20 years, their voices will really start to be heard, 15 to 20 years. And they are going to be the ones that build this new future, because it's Capricorn, it's institutions. But anyway, that's generational. But he's pretty balanced if you look at him too. He's got not much fire though, He's really, Uranus in Aries is not very strong fire. It is in a T square. Did anybody notice the T square too? So he's got Uranus in Aries, Pluto in Capricorn, and 2. I'm just going to say it's 1. So Pluto to Uranus square, and then Uranus is squaring both Mars and Mercury, really, because even though the orbs are pretty wide, but with that mix of revolutionary change in Uranus in Aries, Pluto in Capricorn I just talked about, and Mars and Mercury over there in Cancer, bringing a very nurturing but powerful leader's voice. Okay, I think if he becomes king, is going to be an amazing king, and he could be the one to kind of end royalty kind of thing, the institution of, more than William. I wonder if we've got William's chart, actually. Does anybody want to see it if I've got Williams? Just to look at the family things. Soon. Sun, Moon, Saturn. Oh, yes, that is another one. But that one's slightly out of sign though, so only just really. But you can see he was born on a full moon. I remember him being on a full moon, and that usually means being quite prominent. I'm a full moon. I'm prominent in my own little world, if you like. Too prominent right now, trying to get out of it. I'm just going to look if we've got William's chart. We must have William, Duke of Gloucester. Prince William. No, that's the one I want. So I'm going to get, just to finish the generations, I'm going to get William's chart up. Oh. So yeah, to answer your question, it is kind of a T square, but it's a little bit out of sign, so not as prominent as the other one at all. And I did tell you what out of sign was, right? Because if it's the squares, if it's a real powerful square, it would be 2 mutable signs or 2 cardinal signs, that kind of energy. So see, there's the powerful Cancer following on. Also a Jupiter in Scorpio. So, there's those connections yet again. And this is his dad, Prince William, who I actually really adore both William and Harry, even though I'm not actually a royalist, but yeah. Anyway, I think he is, even though he doesn't want to be, I think he's destined to be king. With that Jupiter at the top of his chart in Scorpio, I think he will become king. Probably, I would be surprised if Charles passed it over. But there's no there's none of the major configurations in his chart, if you notice. So what else would you notice in his chart? I'm seeing a couple of things. Oh, there is one of the configurations we talked about. So one thing I say is he's born on a new moon, whereas his son was born on a full moon. Isn't that interesting? So new moon, new beginnings. Well, I've heard people say of new moon people that they're not very self-reflective. I don't think that's true from what I've seen of him. I don't think it is for him. Also, it's in his 7th house, though. So his marriage to Kate is really important to him, his relationship and his home life with Kate. And they've done it in their own way, very much in their own way. So the new moon, starting the new cycle, I think that's kind of showing up. Yeah, I was just about to say something like that. But in a natal chart, I've read it means that it can mean that because they're born kind of in the dark, that they can't shine the light on themselves. But anyway, I don't know how true that is. But that new moon in Cancer, in the sign of the home, in the house of relationships, I think it's really. I've just noticed our ascendants are about the same degree. No wonder I kind of like him. But anyway, I think his home life is really important, and doing it in a new way. They've really kind of broken a lot of what was a rigid tradition in the royal family, and created their own private little home. And of course, she's a commoner. He was kind of the first one to marry a commoner. There's all that kind of energy. First heir to do it. There's also a yod. Can anybody see the yod? And it's almost an exact yod from Pluto, Neptune to Chiron, and to Venus. So would anybody, and with that in the 5th house, which interestingly is the 5th house, which is royalty, because it's ruled by Leo. So, every house has multiple meanings because, so it's children. The 5th house, yes, it's joy, it's creativity, but it's also, of course, Leo is royalty. I think he's here to bring such. I think he's really spiritual. Jupiter sextile Neptune. So Jupiter in depth Scorpio. He's just had his Jupiter return, another one. You have one every 12 years. Sorry, but Pluto in Libra, that was it. So Pluto in Libra generation, bringing balance, harmony. Okay. And Neptune in the 12th house, but right on his ascendant in Sagittarius, spiritual truths. Okay. And then all this healing. I wouldn't be surprised if William brings in some of his dad's kind of energy. If you want to go and read about Prince Charles' property, it's in Cornwall because he's the Duke of Cornwall. He's got this organic property, farm really there, that he's had for years, that he does a lot of good with. And Taurus is very much the earth. And of course, Chiron is the key to healing, and Venus is bringing the divine feminine in. I just think he's here to bring kind of pretty major spiritual transformation in that family and in the country. So now I'm going to just find another random chart while you look at that one and see if you have any thoughts. And as well, kind of out of sign, but you could at a stretch, and I would, because I do stretch things if they jump out at me. I think I'm meant to see them. So the sextile is between Pluto and Neptune, and Uranus is here at an opposition to these two. It's out of sign, so it's not right in the midpoint, which would strictly. But I'm going to say, because there's like I said, you have to think what's involved, and these are their slowest moving, most powerful generational outer planets. So I'm going to say Uranus is kind of going up the middle of that yard, and Uranus in Sagittarius is revolutionary, new visions of how to do things. Okay. But he's still Cancerian, so he's very private about it. He's very fun, though. He's always, not party boy like Harry, but he's fun. Sagittarius rising. But he's got... Does anybody ever... I'm talking to some Americans and Canadians here. We've got a couple of... Got one Brit online, Jennifer. I always think of William as being a very happy chappy who's shy because he's Cancer, yeah, but he's broken the mold a little bit, but he's kind of very pleasant, and Sagittarius rising is usually very pleasant, and also likes to travel, and he's travelled. But anyway, no more thoughts. I don't like to think I'm just doing these readings, guys. I'm going to get off the royal family now. I'm just going to randomly pick a name that I know is in this database. I didn't collect these, by the way. If anybody invests in Astro Gold, they've got a good app, which is cheaper than buying the actual software, and the app works very well. I started with the app, okay. So I can highly recommend the Astro Gold app if you want to invest in something beyond astro.com that isn't also not hugely expensive. So I would... Okay. Let's look at Elvis. Now, this time I am going to wait and see what jumps out. What's the main... Well, anything, whatever. What jumps out at you? I'm going to have a drink while you think about it. In fact, you know what? I'm going to put a bit of music on for a minute and ask you to just write a little paragraph. I'm going to find something. It doesn't have to be journey work or whatever, but gentle music for 5 minutes. And I'd like you to write something about Elvis. And, it's kind of easier to do this because you know Elvis to a degree, you know a bit about his story, or you might do, or you might not, but most people know a bit about him at least, and kind of the change he brought in music and stuff. So, because I need the bathroom too, so bear with me, I'll just get some music up. Hope you're all thinking about it already there. Oh my God, these are all 4 hours long. Anyway, I'll put this on. Hope you don't fall asleep. I'll just turn it off when I come back. I'll be back in a moment.
was the last time
the ads, that's
something
not
was
relaxing.
so beautiful?
There we go. Yes, that stopped the music. Sorry. Didn't mean to stop it so abruptly. My coaster fell off the bottom of my water thing. But so what does anybody think to what they see in Elvis's chart? Second house, yeah, Mercury, second would voice, earning him his money. Kind of on the stage. Very good. What would you say? Not just you, Barbara, but Barbara's picked out the main things. What about that T square Pluto to well, mainly to Mercury, but also squaring Uranus over there. Well, to Venus too, but mainly Mercury. Uranus in Aries. So Pluto, Mercury, Venus, and Uranus. What would you say about that square? And with Uranus in the fifth, yeah. I think that definitely the voice, but that's involved in the T square, really. And also the fact he's got Venus conjunct Mercury and the Sun in the second house. He was a sex symbol too. And he brought huge revolutionary change to music, right? And Barbara was right that the kind of releases in the 11th house, which I also, the fifth house is kind of the stage and creativity, but the 11th is the big message, I find. It's known as groups of friends and all that kind of thing, but I'm also seeing people in the 11th house kind of have a mass message. So, yeah. Do you know if he did lose a twin at birth? Or are you guessing that's what it would mean? He did. Interesting. There you go. Thanks for bringing that one up, Lorraine, because I didn't know about that one. And I would never kind of just say, look at that and say, oh, I bet you lost a twin at birth. But, there would be something a bit unusual. Yeah, moon, very sensitive. The Jupiter in the Scorpio in the 12th, I mean, he sang a lot of gospel. He was deeply religious, really, and connected to God, if you like. And Sun sextile Jupiter, yeah, which is even more dynamic than a trine. So, but it's also connected to a trine to Neptune. And Jupiter and Neptune, kind of both faith and belief kind of thing. He was fun, yeah. So Jupiter brings the fun, but with the Scorpio and 12th house element of the Jupiter and the Neptune being tied into that sun as well, that also indicates his spiritual, religious kind of leanings. Yeah. But that grand trine, how transformative for what he did, deep transformation, revolutionary in the fifth house of creativity, in Aries as well, in cardinal sign. So he initiated change. I mean, he was really a game changer in music, wasn't he, really? So we've got all that. Anybody else, any other comments? I was quite surprised that he was a Capricorn. I don't know why. When I first looked at his chart, I was quite surprised that he was a Capricorn. But actually, most Capricorns I know are a bit naughty and a bit earthy, and a lot of Capricorn men are very horny goats. So, yeah, he was handsome. Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, they can be a lot of fun, especially as they get a bit older, to be honest. But he was quite prolific. A lot of women dated Elvis, didn't they? And he had lots of affairs, and so maybe that's a love affairs as well, is there? So he was a bit different with that. But interesting chart there. But yeah, very sensitive, and probably Moon in Pisces being quite sensitive to alcohol and drugs as well, really. Yeah, no, they're not all kind of like rakes, shall we say, but they can be a bit naughty. Yeah. I mean, he's got other things in there too, so that indicate that. But the Capricorns have got that very naughty side, not necessarily in doing, sometimes just in joking around and things like that. Yeah. But Moon in Pisces can be very sensitive to alcohol and drugs, and so can 12th house stuff. Okay, I'll tell you a little story I remembered. I've got 12th house Jupiter and 12th house Sun. And I was telling a friend the other day, we were talking about legalizing pot, and I had a friend who was just a bit of a pothead, really, and she would be in her car driving and she'd be smoking a joint and I wouldn't have any, and I would get higher than she did because I was just sitting in the car. So yeah, but unfortunately kind of did him in the end, and he went too far the other way. Everybody always blames fame and fortune, but I think there's probably a lot to be looked at in their astrology as well. So does anybody else have anything to say about Elvis before I choose another random chart? Yeah. Okay. No, I'm going to do somebody who everybody really knows, hopefully, even over in the UK. So I'm not going to tell you who it is till it gets up there. I'll just stop share and start again. And I'm not going anywhere this time, so just write random thoughts as you do them. But I am going to play music just for a couple of minutes this time, so you can relax and take it in. All right. So let's have some thoughts on Barack. He's Leo sun, by the way. But still, what a mix. It's all right. That's why practice is practice. That grand trine in water. Yeah. It's fairly wide, but it's still there for sure. Because Venus trine Neptune is, I say he's very, very intuitive. And I think that grand trine kind of slowed him down a bit. Because really, he was looking at some of his chart, you would say, excuse me, with that Mercury in Jupiter opposite, well, yeah, big message kind of thing, big communication leader. You can see why his speeches kind of won him the election with Mercury opposing Jupiter, especially in Leo and Capricorn. He was a very kind of a leader with a big, big voice. Unfortunately, I think that grand trine kind of could have been a bit of his undoing, because he didn't manage to get a lot done that he said he was going to get done. Okay, really, did he? If you think about it, I think maybe he got a bit stuck. No, they don't. No, but he had more opportunity at one point when they had both the things of government. If he'd been a bit firmer, but a grand trine is hard to be very firm with, and you see that Mercury Jupiter opposition is out of it's not out of sign. It's Saturn. Sorry, what am I talking about? Sorry, I'm tired now. I'm going like, looking at charts. So you probably are too. But Mercury, sorry, that's in Aquarius. So yes, his message. What was his first message in the first election? Oh, his slogan. What was his slogan? It was very of that ilk, and I can't remember exact words of it. Anyway, but yeah, Aquarius rising is very interesting. And he projected that very Aquarian, very kind of that hippie kind of vibe, even though he wasn't a hippie, but you know what I mean? That kind of loping kind of energy. I will say, look at all this over here. Is Lilith and Uranus in Leo on the cusp of his 7th house. I will say, look, we saw some of those pictures of him and Michelle kind of really looking at each other and really kind of like, oh, I bet he's good in bed. I don't normally say things like that, but I looked at that and I just had to laugh because I was like, oh, bit of an innovator there. Oh. Anybody else have anything to say? Or what else did you say? But yeah, Gemini moon, very intellectual guy, very intellectual. Gemini moons are always curious, always learning, always studying, pondering. That was the word I had for him when he talked. I think that grand trine in water kind of brought that pondering kind of energy into him. Because apart from his actual campaign speeches, which were well practiced, he was definitely more ponderous. Lots of ums and ahs and kind of slow. No one else? Any thoughts at all? No? Oh, I think Bridget had to go. Oh, no, you're here, Bridget. You had to go. Casey had to go. Well, I can bring it up. Well, let's do it. Let's bring Trump up. Why not? I don't mind looking at him as an astrological kind of aberration. Well, and he is, I've said it many times that you know, he had to happen, really. Yeah, it is. I do too. So, God, when Barbara and I meet in Arizona, we're probably never going to stop talking the whole time. I've got 2 Gemini moons. Be like, oh. Donald Trump. So I'm just going to let you guys kind of say some stuff. I think he's got a really interesting chart, actually. And but anyway, I'll let you. I think I went by him first of all because he didn't have any of those standard configurations we're looking at. But now we're just looking at general kind of readings. Everything to the east for sure. Not so much everything underground. He's got quite a lot at the top of the chart there, or towards the top of the chart. I won't say there's much. Like, would you mean underground by hidden kind of thing? Hides stuff? I don't think he does. But he's very self-directed. Very, yes, very self-motivated. Extremely. He's only got the moon and Lilith over there on the Western Hemisphere. So he's not easily led at all. Yeah, not much of a filter. Changes his mind on stuff because not only is he Gemini, but he has Uranus conjunct his Gemini sun. He's, and Gemini's literally can see both sides of it. And Uranus adds that erratic kind of energy to it. And Jupiter, of course, Jupiter's aspecting that. Everything that Jupiter aspects he expands and makes bigger. And Pluto and Mars. Pluto's far away from his ascendant, but Pluto and Mars are both kind of the power, male kind of dominating energy. Pluto's more feminine, but male is the kind of male dominating energy. And with that Leo rising, he definitely likes to be on the stage and saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. I find his Cancer stuff quite interesting. Anybody, any thoughts on that? Geminis often have affairs, by the way. He's rumoured to have affairs. Yeah. It can. But in Cancer, it wouldn't normally so much. It can indicate kind of thing, or he restricts women too, maybe. But I don't know about that. I don't know. Everybody always goes on about, I do more, actually, Bridget. Everybody tries to make these judgments from stuff we don't know. That Melania is kind of this prisoned, tortured kind of character. I don't know if she is, actually, to be honest. I really don't know. I kind of see them as quite a partnership, but she has her own strengths, sort of thing. But yeah, I think she's strong. There you go. You said it too. I think she's, and I think they have a better marriage than people think they have. But that doesn't mean they don't fight. And you know, anyway, that's my opinion. That's what my spidey senses tell me. And she's got resting bitch face when she wants to as well. So what people interpret as her hating on the Donald, you know, I think is just when she's kind of gone into repose too often. So I'd love to find her chart. I don't think I've got it, but that would be an interesting thing. But anybody else want to talk about Trump? And then we have like 15 minutes left available. I think he does actually have a nurturing feeling for the public. He finds it. I think he's a bit of a dichotomy. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of something here. Oh, I don't know what's happened. Oh, I'll just go back to that chart. I was looking for Melania's, but Melania's. I actually do. Well, he's got Cancer in the 11th, but it's kind of, so I think he does have those feelings. But he's got Gemini on the 11th house cusp, which makes him more erratic and things. But I do remember him saying things like, he would never see people, on the street or whatever. Oh, everybody's going. I'm like, come and ask questions. Everybody's just like, oh, I'm off. I've got 2 of you left. Anyway, it's interesting. Good grief. Oh, I don't think they're going for that reason, Barbara. I'm joking. I think maybe they just had to go for something, But that Gemini on the 11th house cusp definitely makes him kind of more erratic, but very sociable. He's a very sociable guy. He's until Lorraine came back, she must have got thrown off. At one time people were loving the Donald Trump. When I remember back in the late 80s, I lived as a nanny in Connecticut, and we'd go into New York and we'd go into Trump Tower to kind of marvel at the gaudiness of it. But everybody, he was kind of a bit of a favorite at some point. So I will say I've always had this sneaky feeling right from when he came down that escalator and announced he was running. And his chart kind of bears my feelings out. I could be completely wrong, but often I'm turned out in hindsight to be right in some ways. That he's got some ulterior motives here. Remember, he was always a Democrat for many, many years. He was always a Democrat. He used to be a big donor to the Democratic Party. I don't think he's playing people to a degree for some reason. There's something going on there. And he has that 12th house power play in the he was born on eclipse, so he was the nodes, of course I took them off so they're not showing on there. He was born on an eclipse, which is interesting in and of itself, and so I have moon opposite sun in my sun's in Sagittarius and my moon's in Gemini. So he's born on a full moon, but he was born on an eclipse. So my take on it, full moon people, I think I already mentioned, are usually quite successful. And in an eclipse, it kind of just makes him more interesting. I think he's here to shake things up, especially with that Uranus conjunct as well. I kind of think it's his soul's I always think with empty houses in this lifetime, people just don't have much emphasis in those areas of life. Okay. So Yeah, people are undecided what it, yeah, but I think it does have a fated kind of aspect. But anyway, back the empty houses. I just don't think he has much emphasis in this lifetime in those areas of life. He's all the other side of the chart, really. And even I would say, Uranus and the Sun are kind of almost pulled into the 11th house to a degree. So really, he's kind of almost got 6 empty houses. He's definitely out there in the public. It's all about who I am. It's all about how I earn my money. Oh yeah, first and third too. Yeah, of course. I don't place huge significance on them. It's just less emphasis on those areas. He's still got planets transiting through them when they get to level 2 and do transits. He's still got signs on the cusp of those houses. So, he's, so they're still significant in that way. But the Sun opposition with Uranus makes him very interesting. It also kind of indicates his sudden changes in fortune, like going, the bankruptcies and things like that, with Uranus there and the eclipse. A lot of change in his life overall, ups and downs, fulfillment. And also it kind of offers, I kind of feel like it's a bit of a wild card thing almost, and that's what he is really. He's kind of the wild card president, because who could have seen that one coming, really? It's kind of weird. I kind of had an early, like, spidey sense quite early on that he was going to win, just like, this is like weird. Exactly. Definitely not at all. But he's definitely for this time, last August 21st eclipse was right on his ascendant, and people were hoping that he would be eclipsed, but no. See, eclipses don't always do that. They reset, but that doesn't mean that they eclipse people out. They trigger major parts of your charts, so maybe people starting to see him differently. The last eclipse was over here. He's got a lot going on with these eclipses and things. He's definitely for this time, and I think he's here to kind of break things down a little bit, whether he knows it or not. But he's doing it. Anybody else anything to say? Or any questions? Or yeah, I think he's waking people up. Exactly. Love him or loathe him. He's doing that. He's bringing people's attention to the fact that everything is all corrupt and all crazy. Yeah. So he's serving his purpose. So I don't hate him at all, to be honest. That doesn't mean I love him either. But yeah, he's pulling the veil back. I just see him as fulfilling his soul's purpose in the USA at this time. It is a difficult job. And yeah, I think we needed a complete, not that all Leo ascendants are narcissists, by the way, but he does have some narcissist tendencies, as we know, and Mars on there doesn't help, and Pluto. Yeah, he's got to have that rhino skin. Exactly. Yeah. So in some ways I feel compassion for the guy, because he was the right person for the right time. We needed somebody more like him, not somebody Hillary actually has Scorpio ascendant and things, and that's what, very secretive, very this, but also kind of quite stingy and not as tough as she appears at all. So I think he's kind of the right one. So we've got 7 minutes left. If anybody wants to say anything else about it or ask me any questions. As I said, we've got the group for sure until we're done. You know, I'm anticipating, because I have got to have this week out, and I've timed it by the start of Jupiter retrograde because I really need this break. But the group will still be there to post stuff, and when I come back, yeah, well, I'm not a Hillary fan. I think people know that, so I think I made it obvious enough. So yeah, I can kind of guarantee this group will be finished. So I'm taking a break so I'll be back late on the 15th, so I'll be back on the day of the 16th. I would say the group will probably wrap up by the 21st, by my wedding anniversary, by the solstice, let's say. Okay, so the solstice is the 20th, so probably we'll complete the group on the astrological new year. That actually seems like a good time to do it. Then I'm going to go and do my retreat in Arizona. Looking forward to meeting you too. Oh, thank you, guys. I've really enjoyed teaching it. I've learned a lot from teaching it. Oh, that's one other thing I do want to say. I would really, 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 really appreciate testimonials so that I can post them, so that I can do these classes going forward and tell them what students thought. It's your choice whether I post your name or not. I can just always use your initials or something like that. But I would really appreciate testimonials, and pretty soon if you could, you know, while it's fresh on your mind, just post them in the group or message them to me. Would be fabulous. But not too long, but something that I can post on my sales page for teaching astrology, because this is the first time I've taught it and I've really enjoyed doing it, and I've learned a lot about how I might do things slightly differently next time. But I do have to teach to my style. If you do have any suggestions about how things might be done a bit differently, you know, this is kind suggestions, please, because I do teach to my style. Then you also message them. But I've really enjoyed teaching it. I do wish I hadn't done it on a Monday at first with all those damn holidays. Oh, good. I think you just got used to it too. I think they were always there. But anyway, yeah. So I'm going to leave you with a card. But I'll see you in the group. So this is in intro. These are these little tarot cards I've got. Let me stop share so I'm on the big screen. Time. I pulled the time card just for you guys to leave you. And well, actually, I'm not going to go by. No. I take this actually as it takes time to really get to know astrology. But there is no I'm done with astrology also. If you want to practice astrology at all, get started. If you don't, if you were just doing it for you, that's fine, you know. But if the aim of taking these classes was to even just for friends and family, you know, get started. And know that you're never done learning. Know that it's a rabbit hole of endlessness. You'll learn new things every day. That's why it's a fascinating subject. But it takes time to really deepen your practice. And you'll only do that by practicing. So that's my last words on the call. Okay. It is a beautiful rabbit hole. I knew what you meant. I think it's amazing. Fascinating. I look back and I was always interested in it, you know, even in just people's sun signs and just what the planets and things. It's just a beautiful, beautiful subject, and I think it answers everything personally. Gives the answer to everything. You know, only an astrologer or people with an astrological mind can sit and look at Donald Trump's chart and just go, yeah, he's just meant to be here now. You know, it kind of takes all the, what I love about doing readings, I said that was my last word, it's not, ever is. What I love about doing readings and helping people with astrology is that usually it brings them deep acceptance and validation. Okay, that they're kind of on target already and they're on the right path. You know, it usually really kind of digs into their heart and they kind of go, oh, yeah, yeah. Not in terms of just career and job, but soul stuff. Yeah. Oh, what's the difference between instinct? Instinct is less focused. Intuition is really kind of listening. You intuit things. It's kind of paying more attention. Instinct is instinctive. You kind of just do stuff or know stuff. Intuition is listening more, I think. That kind of sums it up. Yeah. All right then, guys, we're at the 2 hours, so I'm going to get off and go and have some lunch and then get this uploaded thing. But I'll see you in the group. Thank you so much. Barbara, let's talk offline because I am going to see if anybody else wants to come to the retreat, but I'm not going to market it at all when I'm off for a week, so it could just be you and I. So let's liaise. Let's see if you do want to hire a car, whichever. Yeah. All right. Thank you. I will. Bye.